Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine Show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us on what is, as I am here in the studio, an absolutely beautiful, beautiful morning. It's a little bit cooler. It's not as muggy. The winds are lighter, and all is well. All is good. All is great in the outdoors here in Michigan on this beautiful morning. And I hope as you are listening to this show, things are outstanding in your world as well. Got some very encouraging news this last week. And who knows, it could change again, right? But as of right now, it looks like the border into Ontario is going to be open on August 9th. Now, why am I excited about that? I mean, I'm a Michigan guy, right? What do I care about what's going on in Ontario north of the border? Well, I might be able to get back north of the border, north of the bridge, on a bear hunt in White River, Ontario, Canada. I talked with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. I've hunted up there for the last, 13 years. Missed last year, of course, because of COVID. Didn't get a Michigan tag. So I'm jonesing to go bear hunting. Ron says if he can get the tags from the ministry, and if his guys are willing to bust their rear ends and starting some bear baits several weeks late, he hopes to try to get some hunters up there this year. It'll probably be a couple of weeks late. Normally we go up it's mid-August, August 15th, the season starts. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I have my fingers and toes crossed, and I'm so happy for my friends who are guides and outfitters north of the border that maybe they can try to recoup some of the income that they've lost for the better part of the last 2 years. So I hope to be up there. I probably will not take my recurve this year. I did shoot a bear last time up there with my Predator recurve, Michigan-made Predator. It was a tremendous accomplishment for me, something I'd worked on and practiced and really put my heart and soul and literally blood, sweat, and no tears, but into the whole operation, and I was able to do it. Took a big, beautiful sow with a perfect shot. So I kind of checked that off my bucket list, basically, is what I'm telling you. I will probably go back with a crossbow this time. I know, he switched over to the dark side. Yeah. Whatever keeps you in the outdoors, right? Whatever keeps you out there, whatever makes you enjoy the experience, whatever makes you as proficient as you want to be, whatever increases your odds of making a quick, clean, humane killing shot, God bless you. Hunt your hunt. I don't care if it's with a crossbow, a recurve, a spear, if it's legal, a blowgun. I don't care. Whatever's legal, and you're doing it in a legal method and manner during legal season, during legal shooting hours, have at it. Have fun. Get out there and enjoy it. I have been enjoying it. Been out there on the water, on that angler quest, on my beloved Saginaw Bay, chasing walleye. I know there are a lot of other things out there, right? There are salmon out there. There are bass out there. There are muskies out there. There are pike out there. There are perch out there. There are panfish out there. I know. I get it. And they're all wonderful blessings, and they're all wonderful targets, and all a wonderful way to spend your summertime days and evenings. But for me, there's something about walleye that drives me crazy. Maybe it's because I've watched that Saginaw Bay walleye fishery evolve and grow and change since its resurgence back in the, early 80s? Maybe that's why I'm so addicted to it. Maybe it's because they can be so darned finicky. I was out a few days ago with Mike, a.k.a. Butch Grillo, and his son Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats, and they're hardcore anglers. I love these guys. They're great business partners and just great friends. But they love to fish. So we went out on a day that was again, blowing like crazy from the northeast at the beginning of the day. I'm so sick of windy days. And I was hoping and praying that the wind would die down. More on that in a minute. We started out with a pretty good northeast blow. I went out to my skinny water. We made one pass into the waves. I don't like to troll for walleye uphill. Uphill meaning into the wind, into the waves. The Angler Quest can do it. It tracks very well, but I don't like to if I can avoid it. It makes it harder to read your boards because they're bouncing around out there in the waves. I know you can say the waves impart some additional action on your baits. I don't deny that at all. But in my mind, it's just more comfortable and for me more efficient to troll downhill, downwind, with the waves. But we made one uphill troll, long uphill troll through the skinny water that has been surprisingly good lately. Just could not get anything to go. I said, all right, guys, this isn't working out. Let's go out to the sailboat buoys. Sailboat buoys are a series of buoys out there on the bay that the blowboaters use for races. And we, as anglers, use them as markers. Okay, where are you at? I'm up by G. Okay, all right, now I know where you're at. Couldn't get anything going out there. So Nick, who's also a skinny water rat like I am, and I looked at him and said, you want to go back in? He said, yeah, let's do it. Let's end the day pounding the skinny water. If we don't get any fish, at least we tried. We got back in there on the same path that we had trolled about an hour and a half earlier and started to catch fish. The only thing that had changed is the wind had died down a little bit, so it wasn't quite as rough, but the conditions were basically the same. We didn't get a storm that came through. The wind didn't change drastically or dramatically. Light levels didn't change that much. It's just that the fish had turned on. And that's one of the reasons why I love walleye. If you got to be in the right place at the right time. Because if you're in the right place, this is in my experience, right? I'm no tournament angler. I'm no professional angler. But if you're in the right place at the right time, you can get them to go. If you're in the right place at the wrong time, you're going to fight those fish and struggle to get them to turn on. So we came back an hour and a half later, and boom, we got fish. And we got nice fish too. And this was on Friday. Sunday, and I told you, I don't like to usually fish on Sundays because Sunday is my, church and family day. But my grandson, Trent, called me Saturday night. He says, Grandpa, you want to go fishing tomorrow? Well, I told you last week that I always felt like if I went fishing when I was supposed to be in church, I feel like God would smite me. That he wouldn't allow me to catch any fish. So I waited till after church. And Trent and I went out. So this is mid-morning, right? This is like 10-ish. I think we got out there maybe 10:30, 11-ish. And as we got out there, the watercolor was good. There weren't too many floating weeds. And there was a little bit of a chop in that skinny water, the shallow water. I like a little bit of a chop. We made one pass, got a keeper fish. I think we got a short fish as well. And I thought, okay, we're going to get some fish today. And then the wind died. And it got miserable. Fortunately, we didn't have bugs. But the wind died. It was really, really hot. It was dead flat calm, and I could not get a fish to go. We went out deep. No, we went east. I couldn't get anything to go. We went out deep. I couldn't get anything to go. We got a couple of more short fish, a couple of sheephead, and called it a day because it was dead for me. Lo and behold, Remember I had said I was asking and praying and hoping for the wind to die? Well, after I was out there and it was 90 degrees and there was no wind, I was thinking, Avery, why did you wish for this? Be careful what you wish for because you might get it. Well, coincidentally, the two guys that I had fished with a couple of days earlier, Nick and Butch Grillo, came out there in their own boat in the same water that we beat up on Friday, in the same water that I was fishing on Sunday with very little luck, and they got a bunch of fish. Because they went through there when the fish had decided to turn on, when the fish had decided to feed. Right place, right time. For me, if I was a full-time charter captain doing paid trips and I was out there all the time, or if I was a tournament angler, I would have more insight into this. I would learn how to troll uphill into the waves. I would learn how to fish when the water's dead flat. But I'm more of a weekend warrior. I'm probably more like you are. So these are just things that I have observed over the years. Hey, what does your bait box look like? I was looking at mine the other day. I got it in the Angler Quest. I've got a series of bait trays. And one has all flicker shads, and one has all Hottentots, and one has all spoons. And then one has, snap swivels and split rings and hooks and things like that. And I open it up, and I'm looking at this thing going, this is a mess. But I know where things are. So I posted online. I said, what is your bait box, your tackle box look like? And people said, I put them in their individual tubes. I take the hooks off. Listen, when I'm out there fishing, I don't have time to go through individual tubes. I don't have time to put hooks back on baits. And you know what I decided? I decided I don't trust anybody with an organized bait box. And that's a joke. Don't get mad. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show. After the break, Nick Percy of Killer Food Plots. Have you missed your window to get your food plot in? Do you have to wait till fall now? Nick will tell us about that. Ted Harpham of Darton Archery. It sounds like they're ready to unveil some things. Been waiting a long time on this with the new owners. Elliot Shafer of the Michigan Wildlife Council checks in hour number 2. Paul Schlafley, live on the water out of Manistee. Mark Monroe of the DNR talking about forestry. And in hour number 3, Nick DeShano of Offshore Tackle. And wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. That's coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. You can hear us on the other side of the state in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM, and you can hear us in the middle of the state in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze is a family-owned, Michigan-based company. You absolutely know I love working with family-owned, Michigan-based companies, especially when they make great products like Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze is a replacement for wood. It's made from recycled hardwood. You can cook over it. You can use it in your fireplace, your grill, your fire pit. I mean, anywhere you can burn wood, you can burn Speedy Blaze. It's water resistant and it's insect resistant. It burns hot, it burns clean, and it burns down to ash. There is absolutely no downside. Check them out online at speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. While you are online, of course, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and I'd ask you to head on over to KillerFoodPlots.com, KillerFoodPlots.com, the website of family-owned, Michigan-based Killer Food Plots. Nick Percy, the man behind Killer Food Plots. I talked with Nick just last week as we recorded a new Killer Food Plots podcast, and it seemed like a good time to get him on the radio show as well. He's taken a break from tractor time to talk with us. Nick, welcome back. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm doing good. I got to believe, though, I mean, man, you burn the candle at both ends, and this time of year is probably no exception, is it?
That's true. Definitely no exception. We have a blowtorch on both ends of the candle right now. So, but we're getting it done, and things are going well. So,
Nick, are we in a planting stage right now, or are we in a maintenance stage right now?
We are in a maintenance and preparation stage. About another week from now, if you kill off your plots this week, pull your soil samples, get them into our lab so we can get them analyzed and evaluated to know what to correct. In about another week, you'd be prepared to start planting your fall food plots. But you can plant all the way pretty much through the month of August here in the upper Midwest, and even later than that as you go south.
The end of August here in Michigan. Are we going to see something green up by the youth season, or at least by October 1st?
Youth season is normally the 22nd, right around my birthday. The 24th is my birthday, so it's right around that time frame. It usually takes about 4 weeks for our brassicas, which would be Carnage brassicas, deep woods, crop duster. Any one of those three to mature takes about 4 to 5 weeks or so. If you get it planted by mid-August, should be no problem.
Nick, I'm going to ask you some questions here that are much more basic than we talk about on your podcast, because that's for more of a hardcore audience. I'm going to start with simple questions here, basic questions. It takes time, money, and effort to put in a food plot. Why should we do it? What's the benefit?
Well, the benefit is deer feel more comfortable using a natural food source. It's extremely rewarding to grow something. It's something you can get your kids and your significant other involved in planting, and it's extremely rewarding when it grows. The benefit of a growing food source is that it's there each time you go out to hunt versus, we're not really allowed to bait in Michigan. So baiting, though, when it was legal, it seems like a thing you constantly have to replenish, whereas a food plot continues to grow and develop and be available for your whitetail.
How do we know where to put a food plot in? We can't just go out anywhere on our property and plant these things. There's got to be some kind of direction, some kind of guidelines, some kind of suggestions?
Well, we have products that grow from full sundown to about 2 hours. So you want to have some decent sunlight. Here in Michigan, having decent soil in an area in the woods where you want to plant a food plot is questionable. So that's where a soil test is really important, understanding what's going on in that soil. We'll jump on the phone with you. We'll write a recipe to help you know what to do to amend or fill the holes, the gaps in the soil where you need it, and then pick the right seed blend for your conditions, whether it be soil, amount of moisture, and sunlight availability.
How much equipment do I need to do this? I mean, when I was a kid growing up on the farm, we had all kinds of stuff around. I could have ripped a food plot in there at any time. But these days, I've forgotten how to do such things, and I don't have access to that kind of a gear anymore.
Well, if you have a 1-gallon pump sprayer that you can kill off grass and weeds and a heavy tine rake and a regular leaf rake, you could technically do a food plot in a spreader, a little hand spreader. So that's the minimum tools you need to grow pretty much most of the products that we have, with the exception of maybe the screening products, which need to go underground. You need to rip the ground up pretty good. But if you can kill off grass and weeds in competition and get good, decent seed soil contact, knock the grass and weeds down with maybe a weed trimmer or a sickle after you broadcast the seed in the fertilizer, and then spray that with our liquid soil defender, you should be able to grow a successful food plot.
If I go into a spot and I spray it to kill the weeds, how does my food plot come up after that? Wouldn't it kill the seeds I plant too?
So if you spray the grass and weeds to kill those off, there is not a residual resistance to growing the new seedlings, as long as you're using a product that has glyphosate. If you use a 2,4-D product, that is a ground sterilizer for about 30 to 45 days. So you want to stay away from that, but go with like a standard glyphosate, kind of like a Roundup type product.
Roundup is the name I hear. Roundup is, how long does Roundup take to break down and get out of the system?
It literally, once it's dry, it shouldn't be an issue, should not be resistant, I should say, against any issues with growing. So you should be fine as soon as it's dry, you can plant and go. So. And
how big does a food plot have to be effective? I mean, we're Americans, so the bigger the better, right? Or is there more is always better? But realistically, is there a point where it becomes too big?
I prefer to keep plots without screening. I would prefer to keep plots an acre or smaller without any type of screening, whether that be natural screening. I like to shape them in kind of a kidney boomerang type shape so that it forces the bucks to have to come in and walk and look and search through the food plot versus just a big square or rectangle. But to answer your question on the size of the food plot, I would say an acre down to an eighth of an acre. You get much smaller than an eighth of an acre, it's going to be difficult depending on the deer density on your property, how many deer are browsing in your food plot. It might be tough to grow a successful food plot just because of the pressure.
Well, so do you say if you're a bow hunter, if you're going to be primarily bow hunting an area, is it your thinking that you want to be able to shoot that entire plot, or are you willing to let a buck wander around in there until he gets over into your range?
I would say larger than maybe you can shoot, but shape your plot so that it pinches the deer down, knowing where they want to go, and utilizing some of that native understory, and or you can pile some dead brush and things on an edge, not completely around the food plot because then they feel trapped, but you can use some of the natural growing vegetation as well as some of the dead vegetation to funnel the deer to the point where you can get a successful high percentage bow shot off at your animal.
Perennials or annual seeds?
Annuals produce more groceries for your deer going into the fall and prime hunting season into the winter. So they're easier to grow in most cases. But you can certainly add some clover, our res clover, chicory, our cold play blend, which has clovers and alfalfas, in the fall. A lot of people like to plant them in the fall because there's a lot less weed and grass competition once you've killed off what's there and growing. But annuals, hands down, are the easiest to grow. They grow the fastest, and they produce the most healthy vegetation and groceries for your deer.
You mentioned,
so I would go in that direction.
You mentioned several different types of your products. How do I know which one to use? I mean, if I go to your website, killerfoodplots.com, there are several different options there, Nick. How do I decide?
Well, depending on your sunlight and your soil conditions, like I said, if you look to buy, if you're a first-time food plotter, haven't done it before, aren't that knowledgeable, I would steer you in the direction of trying a deep woods food plot, which will grow from full sun down to 2 hours of sun. Doesn't need perfectly corrected soil. We offer our KFP bundles on the website, which includes a KFP soil test kit. It includes a gallon of our liquid soil defender fertilizer and root stimulant, also 2 bags of our Groganics fertilizer, and that deep wood seed. So pretty much everything you need to be successful with your first food plot.
What do you call that? A kit? A package? What is that called?
It's called the KFP bundles.
Bundle. So you know what? That seems like a great idea for somebody who's new to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you a little cost savings on top of that. So when you bundle those things together, everything on our website is free shipping, and we can get you set up. Once you submit that soil test, give us a call. We'll get on the phone. We'll make sure we help walk you through step by step so that you can be successful in your first food plot, or maybe your first successful food plot you've ever been able to plant.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories out there about people saying, man, I tried it, I just couldn't get them to grow. I mean, you hear that all the time.
I do, and a lot of that has to do with how poor the quality of the soil is here in Michigan. So I call it the Michigan dirty sand. So it's normally our pH is very low. Low pH contributes to, the plants not being successful. Once they germinate, they're not able to get nutrients. They're not able to grow. And people skip a lot of the steps and things that are necessary, even in what I consider the simple approach that I discussed earlier with a sprayer or a couple rakes, a weed whip, and a little hand spreader. People skip steps and don't do things. And if you just adjust your order, you will have success, and I can help you to figure that out.
Well, Nick, I appreciate your time. I would tell people if they're more of an advanced food plotter, they should look for the Killer Food Plots podcast, because there every month we go much more in depth. But I appreciate you breaking it down and giving us kind of a beginner's level look at things this time around. Nick, appreciate your time. We'll let you get back to your day.
All right, I appreciate it, Mike. And that podcast is on our website. So thanks a lot, Mike. Right. Have a great day.
You as well. KillerFoodPlots.com is where you can find out more about the company, the products, these bundles Nick is talking about, and the podcast as well. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Ted Harpham of Darton Archery says they are now ready to unveil, to announce what they're going to have for shooters, archers, bow hunters this fall. And then Elliot Shafer from the Michigan Wildlife Council here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM, and you can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. That's mucc.org, mucc.org. And you can use the promo code MIKE, all caps, M-I-K-E, to save 25% on your MUCC membership, either your first time joining or your renewal. mucc.org, promo code MIKE. While you're online, I'd send you over to dartonarchery.com, dartonarchery.com. I was on the website just the other day, and there I was trying to look at some new crossbows, and it said, sorry, we're out of production. We're trying to make them as fast as we can, but we're out of production. And the reason I was really curious is I'm really thinking that when I head into the woods this fall, I'm probably going to have a crossbow in my hands. And I'll be honest with you, I would just as soon have it be a Michigan-made Darton crossbow. I've worked with the folks at Darton for a long, long time. A few months ago, Darton Archery was sold, and they've been real quiet since then. But Ted Harpham of Darton says they're now ready to unveil what's going on, and he's with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Ted, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Mike.
Hey, so I'm real curious. I mean, you guys have been keeping things under wraps for a while. I understand. We went through COVID. You went through a change in ownership. You're trying to build product. When am I going to see these? When are we going to see these? When are they going to be on the website?
Well, by the way, Mike, nothing was easy.
I can only imagine.
And, oh my gosh! Well, it's worked out terrific for us. Randy Kitts at Black Eagle Arrows has purchased Darton as of the first of the year, and was very fortunate to be able to keep everybody at Darton Archery in their same positions. Rex is still our lead engineer. Chris is still here. I'm here. All the guys in the back. We've added a few more people, so it's been terrific. But in the midst of doing all that, we decided to change our bow line. We just wanted to move up above the rest. We've always been a leader in technology when it comes to cam systems and designs and stuff like that. And many, most of the companies in the industry use our product now. But we have redesigned our entire bow line, and we've redesigned our crossbow line. So we kept things under wrap because we didn't want to leak it out, and we just kind of wanted to hit everybody all at one time, and we're just now starting to begin to ship bows.
Well, and you wouldn't want to wait any longer. I mean, I know you did what you could, right. But people are getting bows now. They want to get these bows in their hands. They want to be shooting them and getting ready for bow season. So what do you got, Ted?
Well, Mike, our number one bow that we've got that's going on right now is our new Spectra E, and it's called our Spectra E32. It's 32-inch axle to axle. Now, we've changed everything in this entire bow from the Spectra E that we had before. So we just kind of nicknamed it the 32-inch to give you your axle to axle. It's still a 6-inch brace height. The entire bow now is made out of 70-75 aluminum instead of 60-61 with an all-new riser, all-new grip placement for your hand. We got the 775 cam system, all the mods. This bow now comes where you can get a 65, 75, or 85% mod on the bow. It's shooting about 335 to 340 feet per second. This thing has just got a list of features that's unbelievable. It's got positive limb draw stop. You can put the draw stop tabs on the mod to micro adjust your draw stop and your let off all at the same time. So it's just got a host of things that you can do to really put this thing into the premier hunting bow. Is
that your flagship hunting bow for the new season, Ted?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
What about crossbows?
Crossbows, we've got the new Toxin 100 RD, which means reverse draw, not reverse limb, but reverse draw. So these bows now are coming out at 9.5 inches, and the Toxin 100 is shooting about 385 to 390 feet per second with a 400 grain bolt. Super quiet. We've really quieted these things down. We still have our patented trigger system and anti-dry fire system. Now we've got a new way of cocking these bows with a cocking sled, which makes it much easier. We're still running 40% let off, so it's a great bow in the field for hunting. And then we also have the Toxin 150 RD reverse draw. Again, 9.5 inch axle to axle. So it's got the real narrow, very compact feel. And this bow is shooting 433 to 435 feet per second.
Wow.
It's crazy.
You say 9.5 when it's drawn. When it's cocked, it's 9.5 inches. Yeah, okay.
Yes, yeah.
So, Ted, go ahead.
And what's nice, Mike, is that these bows now, the way they're designed and the way they're set up, it's super easy to carry them. They're a lot lighter weight. So you can pick up whatever package you want. We've got 3 different packages for our crossbows. We've got a pro package and an expert package and a hunting package, which as you look online, you're going to start to see the bows online at the website starting to pop up now. There's some that come up this weekend. Our Tempest is another new, completely redesigned bow. So everything has gone to with our crossbows, so to speak. Guys are kind of concerned about cam systems and the way these new crossbows are designed. We've moved now to 1/4-inch axles on everything. We've gone to 790 limbs, so it's got what we call our stability package, which gives us a real wide limb pocket and a real wide limb.
Ted, listen, so I don't want to get too caught up in the weeds here because we're out of time. The question is, when can we get these things?
We're taking orders right now, Mike.
Excellent. DartonArchery.com is the website, DartonArchery.com. Ted Harpham, appreciate your time on what I know has been a very, very busy process. DartonArchery.com. I will be checking out their new and improved crossbows. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Elliot Shafer of the Michigan Wildlife Council wraps up this first hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Traverse City on WTCM. It's 580 AM. And you can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knives. Rapid River Knife Works, the website rapidriverknifeworks.us. Look, you use a knife all the time. I've got a knife in my pocket right now, and you probably do as well. I reach for that knife several times a day. Why not make it a handmade, Michigan-made knife from Rapid River Knife Works? Chris Durson, who owns Rapid River, is an expert knife maker. He's been doing it for 3 decades now. I actually have 2 of them on order. I was talking to Chris just the other day. I said, Chris, that knife hasn't showed up yet. He said, oh, man, we sent that thing out. So we got to figure out where that is. I'm afraid it got lost in shipping, which is going to break my heart. Handmade, custom-made, guaranteed for life. Check them out online or check out their beautiful showroom in Rapid River in the UP. The website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. Then head on over to MikeAveryOutdoors.com and then head over for hereformioutdoors.org. Hereformioutdoors.org, the website of the Michigan Wildlife Council, a group that I have been working with since they were formed. They are formed to protect hunting and fishing here in Michigan by educating the non-outdoor public. Elliot Shafer is a member of that group. He's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Elliot, welcome. How are you?
I'm well, Mike. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, listen, a real pleasure. I know you're an avid bird hunter. You are involved and a member of several bird hunting groups, several dog groups, several hunting-related groups. What is it about the Michigan Wildlife Council that got your attention? What is the role of that group in protecting what we love so much?
Yeah, it's an important role, Mike. And as you know, you've been a great advocate and partner of ours for a long time, as you mentioned, since the inception. But, it's expanding out the knowledge base of the non-hunters and fishers in it's primarily the urban core of the state, and I think we've done a nice job. There's been some statistical research that shows that our message is impactful in reaching a wide range of individuals. So it's important work, and excited to be a part of the team doing it.
Elliot, why do we care what the non-hunters or anglers think of us?
Well, for a number of reasons, right? I mean, the economic impact of hunting and fishing within the state is incredible. It's vast. It's lots of jobs created by that, but it's the Michigan heritage an important piece of it is hunting and fishing. So we need to protect it for future generations to come.
Well, and I think an education thing, if people don't know about hunting or fishing, if all they know about it is what they get from the general media, the mass media, they might be a little bit slanted. But you at the Michigan Wildlife Council, you've come up with this Here for Generations campaign that has been very subtle to begin with, maybe a little bit ramped up in recent years. But people are starting, non-hunters and anglers are starting to realize that we, as the hunting and angling public, we are the ones who pay for conservation, and whether they hunt or fish or not, they would be more, receptive when it comes time to go to the polls and vote on such matters.
That's correct. Yeah, I think I'm looking at some statistics right now. Surveys in 2015 showed that 70% of the state's population was aware that the sale of hunting and fishing licenses funded conservation work, and now it's up to 81%. The statistics are pretty incredible.
Will this job ever be done? I mean, is there a magic number you're shooting for, or is there a time frame, or is this something that's going to have to continue into the foreseeable future?
I think the campaign Here for Generations will tell you that it'll never go away. It's important that we all take an angler or hunter with us every time we go, so that we can all continue to foster these great experiences for a long, long time.
You bring up a wonderful point. This whole idea, this whole concept of ensuring our hunting and fishing, our outdoor heritage, goes beyond just what you guys are doing in print and radio and billboards and TV. It goes into the real world where we as hunters and anglers have to play a role in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's like I said, taking a new person out with you, or sharing a story, or sharing a meal for a wild game. There's a number of opportunities to do it, but as we all know, hunting and fishing numbers were way down prior to the pandemic, but we're doing a lot better, but still have a lot of work to do.
Well, Elliot, I appreciate the work that you and everybody at the Michigan Wildlife Council is doing. I'll send people to the website here for mioutdoors.org, here for mioutdoors.org. And good luck to you on the upcoming bird hunting season.
We're getting closer and closer. I'm itching to get out there, and thanks for all your partnership. Appreciate all that you do. All
right, Elliot, appreciate your time. Elliot Shafer of the Michigan Wildlife Council, the website here for mioutdoors.org. The Here for Generations campaign has been, as you say, as Elliot said, statistically effective, but I think anecdotally it's been very effective in getting the word out that hunters and anglers, we are stewards of the resource. We pay for conservation, and you don't have to be a hunter or angler to enjoy what our dollars, what our funding have done. And the Michigan Wildlife Council has done a great job in getting that word out in the southern part of the state where, to be honest, maybe not everybody shares our love for the outdoors. So it's good that they get the word out. We'll take a break here for the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going live to Lake Michigan with Paul Schlafley of Riverside Charters, and then we'll check in with Mark Monroe of the DNR, some forestry issues, including gypsy moth concerns. Coming up in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue to celebrate the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. This is hour 2 of this week's show. Outdoor Magazine is actually a 3-hour weekly radio show that airs on more than 24 stations across the state. And I do think the best way to listen to the show, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. You get your local news, weather and sports, your local commercials, your ads. Maybe there's a sale you want to take advantage of. Plus, the broadcast stations get the content before the podcast version of the show is uploaded. And I'm just proud of the fact that I have a statewide syndicated outdoor radio show that's been on the air for many, many years. There aren't many of those out there. There are a lot of podcasts out there these days. In fact, the line between podcasting and broadcasting, I've learned, is actually blurred. There is no line in the average listener's mind, being you. And it's something I'm just going to have to wrap my brain around. But again, I do think the broadcast show, the version of the show, is the best way to listen if you can. If not, there is a podcast version available. You can hear it a lot of different places, including my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I put it on my Facebook page. You can hear it on Amazon Music, on Audible, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, and Radio.com. Really, anywhere you hear your podcasts, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show, including on YouTube. I even put a version on YouTube. I upload the podcast Sunday afternoon at 6 o'clock. I also produce monthly podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, and Shadow Hunter Blinds. And today, when we get done here in the studio, Pat Johnson and I will record this month's Angler Quest podcast and the Shadow Hunter Blinds, the Beyond the Blind podcast as well. So look for those. Check them out. I used to fish a lot of salmon. Used to spend every weekend and a couple of weeks of summer over on Lake Michigan. We used to fish Muskegon, Frankfort, Ludington, and Manistee. I do miss it. I miss feeling a big king on the line, screaming the drag, fighting back. I don't get that too much with my walleye. They're good eating, but they're not very good fighting. But I still, even though I don't get over there very often, I still have very soft spot in my heart. I mean, that's what my dad and I used to do, was salmon fishing, and we bonded out there on the water, and we really, I do miss that part of it a lot. Paul Schlafley is one of the best big water captains I've ever met. He's been on the water since he was a kid. He fishes out of Manistee, Riverside Charters, out of Manistee, RiversideCharters.com. He's on the water out on Lake Michigan right now, and he's agreed to spend a few minutes with us. Paul, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Doing good, Mike. Just kind of wrapping up today and going in. It was pretty rough out today, and had a big north blow, so the lake was pretty riled up today. So. But, yeah, we're just heading in now. It's nice out.
Yeah, now it is, sure.
Yeah, and we're going to go in.
Well, and you've had your share of those north blows this year, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been terrible. It just seems like we can't get rid of the north winds, and that's the wind we do not want here, and it's probably the worst wind direction we get here. It messes with our fishing pretty bad, the water temps, and kind of pushes the fish out of here. And it did today. We did not see many salmon today. It was tough for getting kings. I think they all blew south. I heard they did pretty good down south, down toward Pentwater and Grand Haven. It's been pretty good.
Well, I want to talk more about that. Obviously, a strong north wind, yeah, makes it rough, makes it bumpy, makes it uncomfortable. But you got a big boat, you can handle that. But tell me more about this concept of blowing the fish out of the area. I'm not quite sure I understand that.
Well, a lot of it, when we get a north wind, it brings our thermocline up way high, so the water gets cold and the fish scatter. And the guys I did talk to down south, they had a better thermocline than us. It was like down 80, 90 foot, and they were doing pretty good. Our thermocline was like 20 foot down. And so the fish are real scattered, and they kind of, I don't know, they just weren't here. Not everybody I talked to around here didn't do much on the kings today. Down south, I heard it was pretty good today. For
our non-big water listeners, what is a thermocline? What does that mean?
It's where a temperature changes in the water. It's usually warm water looking for the cold water. Like, usually preferably look, water in a 40-degree temp, is where it breaks off, and the fish will hang at that thermocline. And, and keeps them right in that area. So if it's deep, the fish, congregate more and more easier to catch. They're down deeper. But when it comes up high like that, the fish are spookier and scatter all over the place.
I think I see.
Right at the pierheads.
I think I understand what you're saying. They hang around that thermocline, and yet you've got crystal clear water. You've got a light sensitive fish like a king. When the thermocline's 20 feet down, they're more scattered. They're more spooky.
Yeah, and I mean they could go up into the shallows. More apt to go up in that shallow water. I mean, a lot of times they'll catch them right at the pierheads, and that's where they're at when the water gets like that. But it's just sometimes they move out. They just kind of all over the place. Every day's different, though, too. Sometimes it doesn't matter. You'll catch them, but I couldn't find them today. We caught a bunch of lake trout, lost a big steelhead, caught one king is all we caught today. We caught quite a few lake trout, nice size ones.
Well, and you don't want those kings at the pierhead this time of year. You want to save that for August, right?
Exactly. I don't want them going up the river until September.
Yeah.
So but just anymore, it seems like the last few years we've been getting a lot of north flows. And it seems like once a week we get one, and kind of messes with our fishing here. And a lot of times it helps Wisconsin. They do better over there with the north winds. Fish move over there. It's who knows. It's hard to guess them all the time. You think you can guess them, and sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
Well, Paul, you say every day is different. And how do you react to that? When you leave the pierheads in the morning, do you have a plan of attack, or are you waiting to see what the fish want you to do?
I mean, there's certain areas we like to fish and depths of water, and a lot of times, in the thermals, certain area, like sometimes I'll go in shallower water when it's up high like that. That's what I did this morning. We went up in the shallower water, but we just didn't find anything. But then I'll talk to other captains too. So there's a communication thing too. Like they'll say they're getting them down wherever, down south, or, we kind of have a communication with other captains. So that helps a lot too. So you got a little bit of a network out there talking to people, trying to figure it out day to day.
How far will these kings move in, say, a day? If you got them in Manistee one day and something changes where they're going to move, how far would they go?
Oh, I've caught them right off Manistee and then had a big blow like that, and then I heard they caught them south of Point Savo, which 15 miles away. It's just they move around so darn much that and plus you got fish out deep that come in and out, and so I mean. Per se, how much they move, I don't know. It's a guessing game there too. But it just seems like they'll hang in certain water temps, and sometimes they're in that cold water. You'll find a pocket of cold water, and the fish are all in that cold water. And it's just. But then other times you can't catch them in that cold water. It's just, I don't know. It's a guessing game half the time.
Well, you say cold water. I mean, what are you looking for? Ideally, what water temp do you want to see?
I mean, a couple of weeks ago. We had 56 degrees on the surface, and then and it was like 65 a mile away. So the fish were right in that pocket of cold water. That's where I was catching them. As soon as I got in that 56 degree water, I started getting them, and they were kind of all over the place. Depth down wise, we were getting them, but them fish were definitely attracted to that cold water for some reason that day. And it's just sometimes you find that pocket of cold water. It's right up on the surface, and they'll be in it. And other times they'll be in the warm side. I just think it's a lot where the bait is, where the bait fish is, and that's where they're going to be. So you're always kind of looking for the bait, trying to figure out where that is too. I didn't see much bait today.
Can you tell what the temp is going to be at down at fish level based on the surface temp?
Well, you can go by the surface, but we'll use a temperature probe down. You can find that break. Down, I mean, it'll show different temps as you go down with that probe, and that probe will tell you speed and temp. So that's a good tool to use. But sometimes that surface temp will tell you everything. If you got cold water right up high like that, them fish will be all over the place sometimes too. You'll catch them right up high, right up on near the surface. But and the north winds, what causes that a lot? You get cold water from the north winds. I prefer having them down 80 foot myself. I'd rather have them down deep. I think they're easier to catch when the fish are downs. That's why we like south winds here. It brings our thermal down and groups up the fish more. So that's just what we like here in Manistee anyway.
We're talking with Captain Paul Schlafly of Riverside Charters in Manistee. His website, riversidecharters.com, riversidecharters.com. Got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We'll let Captain Paul continue to work his way towards shore. When he after the break, I want to talk to him a little bit more. I got several things to talk with him about, including the crew that he has with him today. They are people that I'm very familiar with on my angler quest as well. The website, riversidecharters.com, riversidecharters.com. We'll take a break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO, that's 1360 AM, and on WIDL, 92.1 FM. And you can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ, that's 97.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946 when Roland Boning invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to, at the time, would have been wooden arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products for target archers and bow hunters as well, and this is their 75th anniversary. How cool is that? What a tremendous accomplishment. Congrats to everybody at Michigan-based Boning Archery. Check out the website, boning.com. That's BOHNING, boning.com. I want to continue our conversation now with Captain Paul Schlafly of Riverside Charters in Manistee. He's on his way back from a morning charter. Cap, you say it was a little tough out there for kings this morning.
Yeah, we always struggled on them. I just couldn't find them. Caught a bunch of lake trout. We had a couple kings on. We lost a big steelhead. Got one decent king, but yeah, we've been doing pretty good. I mean, fairly decent on the kings. There's been quite a few big ones caught. You know, in our port and throughout the whole lake, I've heard some really big salmon being caught. So they're definitely around.
Yeah, I saw us out of Muskegon here about a week ago, a king pushing almost 40 pounds.
Yeah, yep. And then there's been a few 30 here last week, caught 30-pounders. So should only get better. We get the right weather conditions here. And looks like we got warm weather coming, so there should be a bunch of south winds. It should pick up our fishing with all the south winds coming.
You mentioned also steelhead. Sometimes when the kingfishing gets slow, you guys run out offshore to fish steelhead up shallow. Have you done that at all this year, Paul?
No, we haven't. It hasn't really materialized. The water's really never set up. And we have been actually catching quite a few, not a lot of steelhead, but you'll get, a couple of trip, fishing right up on our shelf where we're fishing the kings. So there's definitely been more steelhead around this year. But, yeah, we never really did do any offshore fishing this year. The lake never really set up for it. The water temps. Lake kind of all warmed up at once, so never materialized.
Well, steelhead, they're a bonus, right? I mean, they're fun to catch.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, they're great fish. Love them. And I'm glad to see them around, that's for sure.
Well, and it bodes well for you for the river this fall, too.
Yeah, it looks better. I mean, the numbers seem to be better this year than it has been in the last 3 years. At least I've, noticed. The last 3 years we haven't been getting a lot of them out in the lake here. Hopefully it'll show it in the river this fall.
What about these lake trout? For a long time, people called them greasers and slime balls, and they didn't want to catch them. But man, when the salmon fishery crashed, they kept a lot of guys alive for a few years. What's the thinking on these fish these days, Paul?
I mean, they put a different strain in on it, and they're better eating than the strain that they used to have in here, Mackinac strain, and meat's real good on them. And then we get some good sized ones. We'll catch them 20-pounders pretty, catch an 18, 20-pounder pretty regularly. They fight good. I mean, nothing fights like a king or a steelhead, but I mean, it's a great film fish if we're not getting salmon, so better than catching nothing.
Well, and your average client, your average customer who maybe doesn't fish a lot, they're going to be happy as could be with a 20-pound lake trout, aren't they?
The majority of the people are, and we get people from all over the country, so a lot of people have never seen fish like that. And so, it's definitely a bonus fish to catch, and they're easier to catch generally than the salmon, so makes it easy when the salmon shut off. You can always catch a few lake trout, throw them mix them in the catch. So get a mixed bag. But,
do you target these Lakers like old school, bouncing their cannonballs on the bottom, or is it much more sophisticated these days?
Pretty much that, running gypsies down on the bottom and cannonballs on the bottom. Definitely you definitely can target them near the bottom. They like the bottom. So, like today, we were catching them on our downriggers on the bottom. We didn't even put divers out for them. We just used 2 downriggers, and the rest was all for salmon. But we had plenty enough action to send them 2 rods. So that's pretty good.
Paul, you said you get clients come in from all over the country. Who are most of these people? Are they repeat customers for you at this point, or do you get to take people out there who have never experienced the big lake before?
Do a lot of new people, never experienced it, and I have a lot of regular customers that come every year. So it kind of get a mixture of both. Like Mike's on a boat, he fishes with me probably 10 times a year. So Mike and Nick, and so you get that. You get your regular customers that just love to go fishing, and want to catch a big salmon. That's what we were after today, and we couldn't get them.
Well, it's funny that you got the Grillos out there with you today, because I had them out on Saginaw Bay for walleye last Friday, and we caught a few fish, but catching a walleye is a far cry from catching a big king.
Yeah, that's for sure. Good to eat, though, the walleye. But, yeah, a big king, there's nothing like catching a big salmon. They're screamers, we call them. So.
Screamers, yeah.
We try to target, when we get out here. So it should only get better. We get these south winds coming back, or at least I think it'll get pretty good up here in Manistee. Like I said, I know they've been doing really good down south. Grand Haven's been on fire, and Pentwater, I guess they've just been really doing good on them. So, it's at least I know there's numbers of kings around this year. Seems to be more kings around this year than there was last year at this time. So that's a good thing.
Hey, did the Grillos bring any Michigan brand products out there with them?
Oh, sure did. We were eating jerky and Mike Avery sticks all day today.
Yeah, that's a requirement. If they come on your boat, they have to come with snacks.
Yep, exactly. Always bring lots of stock. Fill up the fridge.
So the good thing about this time of year is, if it goes like every year in the past for 40 years now, the king fishing is going to get nothing but better now, right?
It should. I mean, it should. Like I said, I've heard good numbers of kings being caught this year, so it should only get better here as the fish start to migrate, head towards, want to start staging for the rivers. And we have been catching a lot of different age class salmon this year, which is a good sign for the future, all different sizes. So I think there's been a pretty good natural reproduction, plus they still plant some, and we don't get the plants what we used to, but I think there's been a fairly good number of small salmon I've been seeing this year throughout the season. So hopefully, look forward to next coming years.
A few years ago, when the DNR said they were going to cut back on the number of fish planted because they were worried about bait fish populations, there was a lot of people who were upset about it, said, oh, no, this is a bad move. Looking back on it, Paul, it almost looks, not almost, it kind of looks like that was a good move, doesn't it?
Probably was. I mean, I think they might be stocking a little bit too much lake trout, but there is a lot of lake trout, and they eat yellowfin too. But I mean, as a charter guy, I don't mind lake trout, so I'm not going to bash it. But I would like to see a few more salmon planted myself personally. But they are increasing the plants, so I mean that's hopefully be the future. I hope.
How are you targeting kings these days, Paul? Because I go back to when I used to spend a lot of time over there in your neck of the woods, and it was downriggers, and if you were real adventurous, it was a gypsy diver. These days, you guys don't even have that many downriggers on your boat anymore, do you?
No, I mean, I only have 2 on my boat, but gypsy divers are probably some of the best producers for kings. But we run a lot of planer boards, copper and lead core lines to get away from the boat when the fish are spooky, and gypsy divers, I'll usually run 4 gypsy divers and 2 downriggers. Every day is different. Some days you'll get them on the downriggers. Some days you don't. And other days you get them on your gypsies, and the next day you can't get a bite on them. So, I mean, you got to kind of have – it's weird, but some days they like certain rigs better than the other. And so it's just one of the things you got to have all that arsenal out there to try to figure them out.
And for folks who are trying to figure out what we're talking about, like lead core and copper, they're weighted lines. They take the bait down without anything else being attached to the line. But what's the difference, Paul, between lead and copper? I use lead core over here for walleye. What's the advantage of copper?
I mean, some guys prefer copper better. They both do the same thing. Copper, I think about copper is I think when you do get tangled up, you can clean up it is not quite as bad of a tangle. You can fix it better than you can lead core. I use both. I mean, if I had one to pick from, I might pick copper, but if I had to just run one, but they both do the same principal idea, but one day you might do better on lead core than copper. So I kind of always ran a mixture. But there's different depths you run them, and depending on how much you have in your rod, it takes it down to certain depths. So you got to know the formulas for that, how much copper to put on a rod, how many colors of lead core. Each color of lead core takes it down a certain depth. So you got to kind of have all that different depth range. You got about 30 rods in a boat for all that stuff.
Yeah. Does copper come in colors? Is that how you put it out? Like 3 colors of lead. Do you do the same thing with copper?
No, copper's more how much feet you put on it. And I have like a line counter I put it on. When I put it on the spool, it counts the footage out, how much I put on. And we'll typically run a lot of 200 to 300 coppers, get it down. Like a 300 copper will get down 70 foot, depending what you're running on it. But, it's, lead core might be a little easier to put on a rod than copper.
So you're putting out 300 feet of copper line behind the boat?
Yeah, and that's usually going off a planer board, inline board. So usually all that stuff is going on a board of some sort. And that 300 copper might be one of the best rods on the boat, really. I mean, day in and day out, pretty good rig, really.
Man, if you got multiple boats in an area running that kind of a line length, you got to pay attention to what's going on. It's got to be combat fishing out there in August.
It can be. Yeah, it gets carried sometimes. And yeah, you got to be paying attention, and people do get cut off, and people do get arguments out here. It happens.
It happens. Yeah, because people are people.
You get cut off, it's not happy because it's expensive.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but, it's just part of the game.
Paul, how are you looking for trips for the rest of the summer? I know you're a pretty popular guy. You got any openings?
Yeah, I'm getting pretty booked up. I run 2 boats now, and my August is about booked. I have a couple openings left if I get cancellations, but yeah, I'm pretty well booked up.
Well, that's a good place to be in, good spot, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Not complaining.
And what about the river? When it gets to be fall, you move up the river. How's that schedule looking?
It's looking, I'm not booked up solid for that yet. I get guys calling every day in the steelhead fishing, and that should be. Like I say, I think the steelhead fishing might be better this year. For all the, the numbers of steelhead I've been hearing caught this year compared to the last few years.
Well,
the river will be better.
I'll send people to your website. They can book a trip with you there. It's riversidecharters.com, riversidecharters.com. Say hi to Mike and Nick for me.
Mike says hi, guys. They're right here. So we're right in the river now.
All right, Paul. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Good fishing to you. We'll talk again.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Paul Schlafley of Riverside Charters. Riversidecharters.com is the website, riversidecharters.com. By the way, he's got Mike and Nick Grillo, their website, michiganbrand.net, michiganbrand.net. Use the promo code Mike21 and get a big discount on anything on their website. We'll take a break here. When we come back, Mark Monroe from the DNR talking about forestry here in Michigan. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. And you can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra, 1330 WTRX. And I know that because I'm reading from my list that I just accidentally wadded up and threw in the wastebasket. I had to grab it back out. I have most of them memorized anyway. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. LinwoodBeachMarina.com. Great people, great facilities, great location. Nothing but good things to say about Linwood Beach Marina. I want to turn our attention now to the folks from the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. Mark Monroe. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Listen, so I know about DNR wildlife and fisheries and law enforcement. Is there actually a forestry division of the DNR?
Yes, there is, Mike. There's a forestry division within the DNR. We're in charge with managing, from a timber perspective, our 3.9 million acres of state forest land that we're fortunate enough to have here in Michigan. We consist of foresters, forest health staff, and our fire officers who do our wildland firefighting.
Oh, my goodness. That alone, I mean, you look at what they're dealing with out west. Fortunately, we don't have to deal with that, knock on wood, at that scale here in Michigan.
No. We did have a pretty active early fire season, both in March and then as May went on, and into June, as you saw, we were pretty short on rain. We were running quite a few fires, but since then, we've been getting quite a bit of precipitation. And so that's pretty much been covered. But then our fire staff has been getting started to get sent out west to facilitate helping fires out there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Well,
we send out quite a few staff out there.
Almost 4 million acres here in Michigan. I mean, that's a huge job. How big of an area? I mean, do you break this down into management by counties, or like we have bear management units? Are there forestry management units, Mark?
There are forestry management units. My particular forestry management unit is the Pigeon River Country State Forest. Mine's approximately 110,000 acres, and that's on the smaller side of forest management units, and it covers into Otsego and Sheboygan counties. For the most part, the rest of the forest management units are on a countywide basis, and they're generally right around between that 200 to 300,000 acres.
Pigeon River Forest. What a beautiful area to be responsible for.
It is. It's pretty nice. I used to work for Wildlife Division, and I've met you, at the elk orientations, and, we're the center of the elk range. And so, we really take seriously, our forest management prescriptions to help provide habitat for elk and deer and, other wildlife that are out there. And especially in the pigeon, we have concept of management that helps us guide our, management decisions. So it's a really cool area.
Well, a lot going on here. I mean, you've got timber sales that you're responsible for. You've got clear cutting for wildlife you're responsible for. And both of those, I think, don't always make people happy. Enlighten us about this, Mark.
Yeah, so, we have a lot of new users in the forest, Mike, especially, with the COVID-19 outbreak. And people really wanted to get outdoors, and when we have a lot of new users in the outdoors, they see some of our forest management practices, and they might not quite understand why we do certain things. And clear cutting is one of them. Clear cutting is what we do. Clear cutting because it's an even age management strategy. The cover type in itself dictates that you have to treat it that way, and for the most part, that's aspen. The only way aspen regenerates is by clear cutting it. And what it does is once you clear cut it, it actually sends up stems from its root system. It's called root suckering, and that's how it regenerates itself. A lot of times, if you look at an aspen clear cut, it's only genetically could it be 8-10 different species or 8-10 different clones of aspen, because genetically they're all the same because they're all being root suckered. And these clear cuts really do benefit a lot of wildlife. As you know, Mike, when you've been up for the elk hunts, a lot of the elk are harvested in aspen because they use that for forage. Same with deer. Our rough grouse and woodcock rely on that early successional habitat at the early age class to have their stem densities for nesting habitat, for brood rearing. When you do clear cut, you open up the forest floor, which provides more sunlight for our forbs to grow, our soft mass to grow, like raspberries, wild raisin, cherry. And those are all very important species for our wildlife.
And what about timber sales?
So timber sales, as part of our timber management program, we co-manage our forest with our other divisions, our Parks and Rec, Wildlife, and Fisheries divisions. So we meet, once a year, and we look at 10% of our unit, and we put up prescriptions that we all agree on that will meet our overall goals in our regional state forest management plans. And some of those goals are wildlife habitat, regenerating forest products, having a sustainable forest. The other benefits are, we want to make sure we're taking into account our recreation areas, our people that are out there hiking and sightseeing. So we take into all these values and we kind of combine them into prescriptions. And once we have those prescriptions in place, we vet those through the public through a compartment review process and a public open house process. And then we'll take those comments in. We can do some adjustments to our treatments, and then we'll put those timber sales up then 2 years following. So we work about 2 years ahead of time to try to get everything prepared for sale.
Mark, hang tight. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. I'm going to hold him on for a second segment for this week's Ask Avery segment. We're talking with Mark Monroe of the Forestry Division of the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. When we come back, Mark is going to answer this week's Ask Avery segment. We should call it the Ask Monroe segment because Mark's going to answer that about gypsy moths and more right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Tawas on WIOS AM and FM, 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC, 660 AM and 95.3 FM. Listen, let's go to the Sioux as well. ESPN 1400 WKNW. I'm hoping there is a chance that I might be passing through the Sioux on the way into Ontario a little later this summer for a bear hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. The border opens up August 9th. Ron says he's gonna do what he can to try to make some hunts happen. So that would be absolutely wonderful. The Ask Avery segment each week is brought to you by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this segment works is, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can ask me a question you want answered on the air. You can send it directly to me. Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com or hit me up on the social media outlets, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And tell me what it is that you want me to answer, or perhaps I can pass it along to somebody else. In this case, it was perfect timing because I have Mark Monroe from the DNR Forestry Division on. And Justin Jers sent me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. He says, Mike, I live in southwest Michigan, and I have noticed that many of our oak trees have little to no leaves on them this year. I recently took a trip up north, and noticed that many of the trees, even as far north as Indian River, are missing leaves as well. I have heard that gypsy moths are the reason to blame. Is that the case? More importantly, what does this mean for the long-term health of the trees, and what does it mean for the mast crop that the squirrels, deers, turkeys, bears, etc. depend on? Would love to hear some input on this. Excellent question, Justin. And I think we've got just the perfect guy to answer it, Mark Monroe. Mark, I had sent you this earlier to give you a heads up of what's going on, but what is your reaction? Is this the result probably of gypsy moths?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, so we've been having gypsy moth outbreaks throughout the state this year. I can't confirm for sure down in the southwest Michigan, but definitely up here, Indian River, Roscommon, anywhere through you're driving up on 75 is been the result of gypsy moth defoliation. We also up here, we did have a late May frost that did affect some of our leaves as well. So we kind of had a double whammy on the oaks up here this year. As far as his question on the long-term impact on the trees, for the most part, most of the healthy oaks can recover from defoliation. Really, what can happen is we could have some dieback if they're under some other stress like drought or, from old age. Fortunately, in the last, month or so, we've been getting, pretty high inputs of water up here in the northern country. So I think that's going to kind of curtail us and help the oaks, come through it, with minimum impact on overall, oak survivability. As far as the acorn production goes, it will affect acorn production. The oaks have all of their carbohydrates into their leaves and their flower production, which the flower production is what results in the acorns. And so it will affect them and, resulting in fewer acorns. But, oaks don't always acorn every year, so wildlife have adapted to not being able to have that hard mast out there, for them. The one thing from a hunter's perspective is when you do find a tree that does have acorns, you're probably going to have a lot of wildlife around it. So that would be some of the things you'd want to target if you're out there, hunting this fall. The other thing that I kind of did a little research, Mike, is when you sent me the question, and the thing that I hadn't kind of thought about, and it was a bear study out west when they did some research on acorn production and gypsy moth affected stands and bear movement. They actually saw that the soft mass production increased incredibly under these oak stands because you take the leaves off, and the raspberries, wild raisins, cherries all actually had more sunlight, so they produced more soft mass. And so the wildlife actually kind of converted themselves from targeting the hard mass that year into the soft mass. So Mother Nature kind of has its way of working out some of these scenarios to benefit wildlife.
I knew you were the perfect guy to ask to answer this question. One more quick question. We do have a gypsy moth program in some areas. Is that statewide or is that county by county?
That's county by county, or even sometimes township by township. So, and that's kind of that program kind of just goes as, because gypsy moth is cyclical. You don't. Some years you won't have any. I think it's on around a 10-year cycle. So some areas counties or townships will treat areas yearly. Others will just kind of ride through the wave and not do any treatment, knowing that overall, as long as there's no stressors on their trees, it's just to minimize year-to-year impact.
Gotcha. So it's not going to kill the trees unless something else is playing a role in here, another factor.
Correct, like drought or stress, any other type of stress, old age. So, that's some of the reasons why we do some of our timber management is, oaks like to regenerate with full sunlight. So if you do treat some of your oaks to get multiple age classes, and that regenerates them into that younger age class, because they'll root sucker, stump sprout, and then so they're more apt to, a younger oak tree is more apt to overcome a defoliation event like a gypsy moth than an older oak tree that's kind of on its way out anyways.
Mark Monroe, appreciate your answer on this, appreciate your time, and Justin Jers, appreciate you sending the question to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. This week's Ask Avery segment. And a big thank you, as always, to our friends at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Again, Mark Monroe, thank you. Website michigan.gov/DNR. More coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yiter Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here in the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue our journey through this celebration of the history and lifestyle of the great outdoors here in the great state of Michigan, and occasionally beyond. How's your week been? What have you been up to since we last talked? Have you had a chance to do anything fun? Have you had a chance to get outdoors? Probably not doing any hunting this time of year, right? But maybe some fishing. I have been fishing as much as I absolutely can this summer. Been out on the angler quest, chasing walleye on Saginaw Bay, my beloved skinny water walleye. And I was thinking the other day when I was out there, I looked around the angler quest there, and I was looking at my different gear and what I'm using, and I'm surrounded by offshore tackle stuff. Absolutely surrounded by. I got the offshore OR12 inline planer boards, the side planers with a tattle flag set up. I've got snap weights and guppies that I put on my line, usually 50 feet ahead of the bait when I want to get them down deeper. I've got tadpoles. What I've been doing this year is if I get into a situation where we're marking fish on the bottom, and, I used to think that they were down there on the bottom because they were resting, they were dormant, they weren't feeding, and you couldn't get them to bite. Well, I now know that you can get those fish to bite. And the way I target them oftentimes is I'll run 2 rods off the back corner of the boat, and I'll put number 3 or even Magnum tadpoles on. Now, a Magnum is a device. It's a very simple device, but it's a weighted device. Also, you set it so it goes at an angle, so it takes your bait down. So I'll put these in front of a spoon about 6 feet behind, 6 feet ahead of a spoon, and I'll drop these things. I'll free spool them down to the bottom. Well, you run them like bottom bouncers, like you would for crawlers. And this allows me to get 2 spoons right down on the bottom and target those fish that are laying there in the sand or in the mud. And they don't get in the way of anything else. I mean, they're just almost directly below the boat, and it works out just great. So I'm using offshore products every time I go out on the water. And I thought, you know what? Isn't it about time to get somebody from offshore back here on the show again? Offshore, a Michigan-based, family-owned company, and that's my sweet spot. I love working with people like that. And I love working with the DeShano family who own offshore. Bruce DeShano started the company years ago. Bruce will be the first to tell you he's kind of stepped aside these days, and the company is under the reins, under the direction of his son, Nick. Nick does a wonderful job, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, welcome back. How have you been?
I've been great, Mike. Good to talk with you.
Hey, always a pleasure, and, congrats on the continued success of offshore. You guys have been around for a long time, but I don't see you letting any moss grow under your feet, that's for sure.
No, we've been around for a long time, and the key to all that success is just the people we get to work with. People like yourself that are been talking about us as long as I can remember. I think I was a little kid, and we were still working together. And the people that we've got assembling products have been amazing, especially over this past year. We've had about every issue or thing thrown at us we could think of in the last year or so. So everybody's just been phenomenal, and really all the credit's due to them. Everybody else takes control of everything, so it's been working great.
I do remember, you bring it up, I do remember, I mean, more than once, but one particular trip we were trolling Saginaw Bay. I was fishing with your dad, and you were just a little guy. Nick, you were along with us, and you were just a little kid at that point.
Yep, the first I remember, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 13, 14, somewhere, maybe a little 16 or something. But I can remember, the earliest remember, we did a show, and it was I think we were steelhead fishing, and we caught a steelhead. That's my biggest remember. I think that's back when you were on TV5, I think it was, yeah. So.
Well, and we're still working together, and I'm still proud to be working with you guys because, you say the leaders in trolling technology is your slogan, but I don't know. I think it's proven to be the case, Nick.
Well, that's what we focus. We don't have a ton of different things. All of our products are pretty much just focused on trolling and being able to narrow it down. And, we might have been able to branch out to some other things, but, we like to build the best quality stuff we can do. And it's hard to, with a small company like us, it's not like we've got a big couple hundred people workforce behind us. So we got to use our resources as efficient as we can. And I think by just sticking by the trolling and doing what we know, we can build the best products for those applications.
Well, there are lots of ways to catch fish. You can jig, you can cast, you can bottom bounce, you can live rig, whatever. But trolling is consistently, day in and day out, a really effective way to catch fish. Why is that, Nick? What is it about trolling that makes it so effective day in and day out?
I think you're just covering water. It's like the difference between having to plow a field behind an ox in a single plow or a double plow, or you go out and get a 10-row tractor that plows the field for you all in a lot less time. So you're covering more water. A lot of the fish, especially where we fish in Saginaw Bay and out in the big lakes, is that, the fish are suspended. They're scattered around a little more, or somewhat scattered, not like they're focused on one little rock hump. So it's getting harder. They've been doing a little more lately with some of these other techniques, but, trolling is just the best way to cover water, and fish are spread out and suspended, and then you can put more rods out. You don't have to have 1 or 2 rods in your hands and that's it. You can get a good spread and you get the whole family involved. The nice thing with trolling is you get people that don't know how to fish and haven't gone fishing. You can take them out and they're reeling in and catching fish all day long and having a blast. So you take somebody that's never fished before and have them go Lindy rigging or jigging in the river or something like that. There's a learning curve before they're really catching fish and having a good time. So it's just good all around production and fun for the whole family.
So it's a numbers game. I hear what you're saying. You can put more rods out there.
Somewhat.
You can contact more fish. You can put your baits in front of more fish. It just makes sense that if you see more fish or more fish see your baits, you're likely to catch more fish.
Yeah, and that's it. And then the key is, of course, there's where you want to fish and then how you target it and how you spread lines out, and that's where our stuff comes in. We get the lures to where they need to be to catch fish.
You talk about the spread. I'm really interested in this because, for example, I'll fish with Brad Dupuis of Angler Quest, and he puts his offshore boards so far out to the side that they're in a different zip code. I've fished with you and your dad runs them real tight. What's the thinking? Yeah. Is there an ideal spread on these things?
It's a personal thing, I think, a lot of it. And I mean, some of it's conditions. I mean, you come out, I live in Harbor Beach, and we come out here and you can see rocks on the bottom and 50 feet of water. So you get in that crystal clear water, you're definitely going to want your boards a little farther out to the side to get those spooky fish. You get in some place where the water, you get down in like in the Erie or some of those places where the water is kind of green and you can just barely see your skid plate on the bottom there. You bring them in tighter. I like to run them as tight as possible and still catch fish. I'm kind of in between. I run them out a little farther than my dad usually does, but like I said, it's kind of a personal thing and kind of how the conditions. If you're fishing and you're catching all your fish on the outside board and nothing's going on the insides with the same temp, the same depth and weight, lures and all that stuff, then you might want to spread your boards out a little farther. But if you're catching fish right off the corner of your boat on the tadpole, then it makes sense to just bring them in tight. You don't have as much stuff to bring in and out. It's a little easier to manage. And then, and the other thing with spreading them out is a lead length. If you're running long leads, sometimes it's easier. You spread them out a little farther. So when you make your turns, it gives them a little more room in between the boards so they don't get tangled up.
That makes sense. You mentioned Harbor Beach, by the way. How is the fishing out there this summer?
It's been good, actually. We've had lake trout. Of course, the lake trout have been here, but guys are out getting some coho still, and they're seeing steelhead and then a king now and then. It's hard to go target them, but they're there. It's not unheard of, and it's been a real good mixed bag. The guys are going out and having some good days on walleye. So right now, it's a nice little mixed bag going on.
Are you seeing any Atlantics at all, Nick?
A couple, but we're not hearing. The last couple of years we've heard more, and this year I haven't heard a whole lot about Atlantics. So some, they roam around so much. They don't like to stay put. So who knows where they're at right now. They could be here for a week, and then they're gone, and you don't see them again, or they come back. So they just put a lot of miles on the water.
There was high hopes, and I think some people still have high hopes for that fish.
Yeah, I think so. It's just going to take some time. And again, there's not a lot of people, and around here, as soon as somebody starts catching a couple walleye in close, everybody gets walleye fever, so now they're walleye fishing, and there's not a whole lot of that big water stuff going on either.
I understand. We're talking with Nick DeShano of Offshore Tackle here on the Outdoor Magazine show. The website for Offshore is offshoretackle.com. That's offshoretackle.com. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram as well. We do a monthly Offshore Tackle podcast, and by the way, it's the most popular podcast on the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network. Last time around, Lance Valentine and I were talking about the new easy crankbait tuning tool to fine-tune your presentation when you're trolling. I'll ask Nick about that after the break. So be sure to check that out. So we'll talk with Nick a little bit more, and then we'll wrap up the hour. and in fact wrap up this week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. And I heard that he actually opened the restaurant up for a few hours last week. All that and more coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS, and you can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. Let's go down the coast. Let's go to Muskegon, WKBZ, 1090 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, cooling, ductwork cleaning, sump pumps, you name it. Everything to keep you comfortable in your house, to keep you warm or cool, depending on the season, to keep you nice and dry. Whatever it takes is their slogan, and I've seen that, whatever it takes. In fact, earlier this week, we were scheduled for an air conditioning tune-up. Now, I know it's a little bit late in the season for that, but I forgot to call them and schedule it. So I called them, scheduled, they came out, they put a new filter in, they checked the AC unit, they cleaned the compressor unit outside. We've got what they call a split, which is an air conditioning and heating unit in our 3-season room. They checked that all out. So now I have the confidence and security of knowing that everything is working fine. And if it's not, the folks at Wilds will come in and take care of it, whatever it takes. They've done that for me. They can do it for you as well. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. While you're online, why don't you check out offshoretackle.com. Offshoretackle.com is the website of Michigan-based family-owned Offshore Tackle. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram as well. There's a very nice, I'm biased because I produce it. There's a very nice Offshore Tackle podcast every month. You can find that on the website as well. We're talking with Nick DeShano right now, the man at the helm of Offshore Tackle. And Nick, in this last podcast, I was talking to Lance Valentine about that easy crankbait tuning tool. I think a lot of trollers overlook the importance of fine-tuning their baits.
I think so, and especially it's one thing if you're just doing 1.5 or you're going real slow, but you get up in those faster speeds. You're talking with Lance, and he does a lot of 3-4 mile an hour trolling with crankbaits, and that'll tell you real quick if you have a crankbait that needs tuning or not. And it's just something that this fine tunes your bait, your presentation. It's one of those little things that it's overlooked, but it can add a couple fish a trip to it, depending on what you're doing, and you get you a lot more accurate with your dive charts. And they spend a lot of money and a lot of time to make sure that crankbait wobbles just the right way that they want it to wobble. And if it's going off on the side, if it's not tuned straight, it's not wobbling the way it's designed to. So it definitely makes a difference.
Well, and I will, a lot of times I fish with a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience out there. And I'll say, hey, when you put that bait in the water, make sure it's running right. And I watch them, and, they drop it 2 feet behind the rod tip, and it's wobbling back and forth. Yep, it's running right. I said, no. You got to let it out a ways and then reel it in fast. And at the higher speed, you can tell if it's running right. If it goes straight down, then it's running right. But if it goes off to the side, then Nick, how do you tweak that?
Well, that's where you got that crankbait tuner. Everybody used to use needle nose pliers, and it works, but it's real easy, especially with some of these, like the slicker shads and some of these crankbaits that have this thinner eye on them. It doesn't. A lot of these baits, everybody talks about, you don't need to tune our crankbait. It runs great off the box. Well, a lot of them do run great out of the box, but as soon as you bounce them around the boat, you get a fish on it that spins, it gets caught in the net. It doesn't take much to throw it out of tune. And the problem with needle nose pliers is it's real easy to over tune it, because most people, if they're not used to tuning, they give it a little pressure and they want to see something move. Well, you don't see an eye move. You just put a little bit of hand pressure is all you're doing, and it's real hard to dial that in there. And then also when it's easy to scrape up the bill. You put one part of the pliers on the bill and the other part on the eye, and you squeeze it, and you can scratch these bills up and break a bill. So we've got the Easy crankbait tuner, and it's there's nothing really out there like it at all. It's you can preset the tension, so it's hard to explain without pictures.
It is, yeah, it is.
But it's kind of like a set of kind of like pliers, but it has one end that breaks free, I guess would say. It kind of ratchets, so it's kind of like how your knobs on your GPS have those notches to keep it tightened, and you can adjust them in different angles, and it locks those in. It's kind of how the knobs on the crankbait tuner is. So there's a spring and a threaded end of it, and you tighten that up. And the tighter that makes it makes it harder to break that one jaw open on the knob. But
well, and there are actually a lot of videos. There are actually it's hard for me to explain it too, but there are actually a lot of videos. Mark Romanek has done some, Lance has done some that really show how to use this. And I think, people who use these Mark Romanek's precision trolling data, those are based on perfectly tuned crankbaits. If yours isn't tuned, you could lose a couple of feet on depth, which maybe make all the difference.
Yeah, for sure. And where this crankbait tuner comes in nice is you can fine tune the tension that it takes to adjust it. You can make tiny adjustments at each time, so you're not overcorrecting. You might click it. The biggest thing is if you get one, you have to remember to reset the jaws. So you make an adjustment, you'll feel the click, it opens the one jaw up, and then in order to make another adjustment, you have to squeeze those two jaws back together so they're flat together, and then you can make another adjustment. That's the biggest thing to remember out there is you have to squeeze it together every time. And I get into the habit, as soon as I make the first adjustment, I reach up, I click the jaws shut before I do anything else. And it just becomes muscle memory after a while. You make a click, shut the jaws, and then check your bait out.
Gotcha.
It's nice. And once you get the hang of it, you get some little time on it. It really makes it a lot nicer way and a lot more consistent way of tuning a crankbait.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Also, I was thinking about this the other day. Going back to the early days of my walleye fishing, we ran these big skis out of a mast at the bow of the boat. How did the transition happen from that over to inline planers? How did that all come about? And I don't see very many masts out there with skis at all anymore. Is there still a use for that presentation, Nick?
There is. Riviera makes a real good triple board. And then they've got those Catchman, the reels for the mast, so you can just turn into it. It's kind of like a handline reel. So to reel it in, you could turn right into it, and it winds itself in. Those are nice when you're running a lot of rods, or if you're going through huge numbers of fish. You got a lot of the charters that are running 6 people, and like Erie, the big 30-foot boats that are taking a bunch of people out, and they got 18 rods out the boat. It's a lot. It's better with them long with the boards. You can just keep sending releases out the line, and you can separate them. But for the majority of us, the inline boards work great. Main thing they come about is, when they were just the PWT was starting up and the walleye was just starting to get big in tournaments and all that, there weren't many options for small boards out there. There were a couple out there, and they were okay, but they didn't run perform near as well as that the pros and that the fishermen really wanted. So we're using the big boards. And then, so we met up with Gary Parsons and Tobias and Mark Romanek, and they said, hey, what about building a board that'll run to the way we want it to run? And we worked on it, and that's how we come out with that. And a lot of the tournament, you're talking 2 guys in a boat, and for the longest time it was just 2 rods apiece. So you're putting 2 boards out each side, and I can manage up to probably 4 or 5 boards out each side. I'm a lot more comfortable with just 3, but I can handle 4 or 5. Some guys go a lot crazier than that, but that then ends up to be too much work to me. So if you're running just a few lines on like they're perfect, and you can adjust what you put on it, and you just frees a lot more options up.
That OR12, that's the offshore board that everybody knows. A lot of people run them with tattle flags. I run them with tattle flags. But you've got 2 others. You've got a mini board, and you've got a big SST Pro Mag board. When would I use either one of those over the standard OR12?
It's all pretty much on what kind of weight you're pulling. My dad, he doesn't hardly put an OR-12 out fishing the bay anymore. He's fishing spoons or small crankbaits and things like that. And anytime we can get away with running that little mini board, we'll run that mini board. It's so light on the line. You can really tell if there's a fish on it real easy. It's even more sensitive than a OR-12 with a tattle flag as far as a bite, because it just doesn't take much weight to pull that board back. But we'll pull flicker shads with it. And majority of the crankbaits we're using out on the bay. Now, if we're running tadpoles and pulling at 3 miles an hour, then that's where the OR-12s are going to be the choice. But especially if you're running for a while there, we're just running 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce inline sinkers and a crawler harness, and that's a perfect time to run those little mini boards. And then the big mag boards are primarily, I mean, if you're going to run a Magnum tadpole off a board, you can run those. But most of the mag board stuff is going to be for your trout and salmon, hauling steel lines and copper lines or big 8 ounce or 1 pound balls and that kind of stuff.
Where is the biggest part of your business? And I'm not trying to get into your business plan here, but you got walleye, you got crappies, you got stripers, you got kings. I mean, salmon and trout. Where are you guys most popular?
Yeah, we pretty much cover the whole thing. Walleye, we cut our teeth in the walleye, and I think it's pretty definitely the number one board in the walleye game. And then we do a lot of trout and salmon, big water stuff, and we've just been kind of exploring around, playing around, and getting some catfish stuff going on.
Oh yeah,
and
I forgot
then
about that.
of course the crappie we've been doing for a few years. So anywhere where they're trolling, anywhere there's suspended fish, and there's opportunities.
Well, this comes to mind. They're trolling in saltwater and they're suspended fish. What about? I know you guys have played around there. Is there a market for offshore and saltwater?
The hardest thing with saltwater is their speeds. They're trolling 7 to 9 miles an hour a lot of times. So it's hard to get something that you pull behind the boat as like a planer board or something like that. We do a little bit of there are some, they use downriggers. Our OR-8 release was originally a saltwater release. That's what we build it as. So that's that big heavy tension downrigger release with the long black cable on it. But now that we switched with all the salmon fishing and lake trout fishing on the bottom and the big heavy paddles and meat rigs everybody's using, we need a heavier release for that. So that's kind of turned into the go-to release for trout and salmon fishing too.
Well, Nick, you've done a great job. I know when your dad turned it over to you, he had complete confidence, and I can see why. You've done a great job and continue to grow. I'll send people to the website, offshoretackle.com, offshoretackle.com. Check out the Offshore Podcast as well. Good fishing to you, Nick, and you and I will talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
All right, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I've got a few more things I want to talk about. Then we'll bring in wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar and help to wrap up this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I'm actually in the studios of WSGW right now. This is where we record the Outdoor Magazine show. In here with Pat Johnston, who I'm putting Pat to work today. He's doing the radio show and an Angler Quest and Shadow Hunter Blinds podcast as well. So he's going to earn that $1,000 a week that I've been paying. Yeah, it's like, I can't even hold a straight face over that one. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. It's your nature and our nurture. I had the guys from Reader come over a few days ago. I've got some trees at the corner of the house, and they're like crabapple trees. I mean, they're just ornamental trees. But if they get too close to the house, they rub up against the house, and they just don't look very good. So I had those guys come out and trim them up. Now, when we first moved into this house, the first couple of years, I did it. I can do it. I've got the ladders, and I've got the pruning shears, and I've got the pruning hooks and stuff to do it. But it took forever, and I got 3 of them that I want to do, and I'm thinking, you know what? There's a better use of my time than standing on this ladder doing this. So I thought, the guys at Reader can do this. They came over in just a couple of hours. They came over with 2 guys in a couple of hours. They had them all trimmed up and all shaped up, and they hauled away the clippings, the trimmings, and everything is fine. So they've done a great job for me, and I can strongly recommend them. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. Let's see, what else is on my list here? The Ontario border is opening August 9th. I talked with our bear hunting outfitter up there, Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. He's going to try. At this point, he's hoping to try to make something happen with some of his hunts. They backed him up against the wall. They really jammed him up. Normally, he would have been baiting for weeks at this point. But he's going to see if maybe he can't make something happen, probably move the hunts back a couple of weeks. If you are on social media, I would encourage you to check out the Mike Avery Outdoors Instagram page. Now, I'm real good Facebook following, but I'm really trying to push the Instagram page. So, again, go to Mike Avery Outdoors on Instagram. If you wouldn't mind, follow me there. I'm trying to boost those numbers up. Speaking of numbers, we've got some promo codes. OutdoorPregame.com. Use the promo code Mike20. You can get a big discount on that see-through Wraith blind. Also, the brand new Breeze blind. That's designed for hunting in warm weather like early fall bear hunts, early fall deer hunts, the youth season. It's designed for warm weather. It's got great circulation. OutdoorPregame.com, promo code Mike20. If you go to MichiganBrand.net, use the promo code Mike21. You can get deep discounts on everything on their website. And MUCC.org. Use the promo code Mike, all caps, and save 25% on your MUCC membership. A couple of things that have been kind of bothering me here a little bit, and I realize they're not big things, right? And it really doesn't matter. And it's just terminology, and it's because of the fact that I'm an old guy, and I've been in broadcasting for 40 years, and maybe I'm turning into a curmudgeon. I hope not, but maybe this is what I'm seeing here. The first one that I've actually kind of given up on fighting this battle is you hear people talk about, and not just lay people, but people in the industry talk about filming their hunts. And when they first started talking about filming their hunts, I thought, oh, these guys are old school. They're hardcore. They're using film cameras. They're using 8mm or 16mm film or whatever, and they're filming their hunts. Nobody films their hunts anymore. Everybody talks about filming their hunt. Nobody films their hunt. They record it on a digital video camera, a digital SLR, their phone. You're not filming anything. But filming your hunt is a term that apparently is going to stick around for a long, long time. So that one, purists like myself and some of the old guys who came up, with film in the early days, we had to give up on that one. And I think another one that I'm just going to have to give up and accept the fact is podcasting versus broadcasting. I hear this on a weekly basis. Man, I love your podcast. I listen to it every week and they'll give a radio station. I had a guy call me last Sunday morning. He said, man, I just listened to your podcast on WSGW. No, you didn't. You listened to the radio show on your local radio station. But I think I'm going to have to give up on that because podcasting has become such a ubiquitous term that people, the average person, doesn't make a distinction between a podcast and a radio show anymore. And to me, that's really sad because I'll be honest with you, I think it's pretty special and pretty cool to have a statewide syndicated outdoor radio show on more than 24 stations across the state. There aren't many people who do that. But everybody has a podcast. So I feel like in some ways that to lose the radio show entity is a shame because it is special. But I guess in the long run, it doesn't matter, right? I still say I think the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine radio is on your local radio station. And if you can't, you can listen to the podcast. But I guess I shouldn't care too much about it. It's just, it's an old guy getting hung up on terms that really don't matter, I guess. Filming, recording, videotaping, it doesn't matter. You're capturing the adventure. Whether you listen to the podcast or the radio show, at least you're listening, right? The fact that you hear my voice means a lot, and I do certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. We will take a break here. When we come back, we'll wrap up this week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. And I heard a rumor that Oscar and Joey's was actually opened up for a few hours last weekend. We'll talk with him about that and more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. Frog in my throat, Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy. I'm here every week for 3 hours talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of. And for the last, well, as long as I can remember, both on the radio show and on the TV show formerly known as Outdoor Magazine, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar has played a big part in that. He's a great guy, an outstanding wild game chef. And I love talking with him each week. David, welcome back. How are you?
Very nice, Mike. It's really nice to talk to you again.
Hey, I heard a rumor. I heard a little birdie told me that Oscar and Joey's Roadhouse in Birch Run, Michigan, actually opened its doors for a little while last weekend. Can you confirm or deny?
Yes, we are going to be open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until we have more help. I can't burn out all of the employees that we have. By the time you hear this, we'll be open.
Wow. How did it feel, Dave, after being closed for, almost a year and a half? How did it feel to be back in the kitchen?
Pretty outstanding. I'll tell you what, it felt clumsy for a little while, but, just done it for so long, it was just like being home again. Going on vacation and then coming back and jamming.
What was the response, Dave? I mean, you did kind of a soft launch. You really didn't make a big deal out of it. Were people there?
Yep. People just came. We opened up put on the open signs, and they came. We didn't do anything. The soft opening turned into be a hard sell.
But do you have...
We were welcomed with open arms, I'll say that. That was very,
wonderful.
Very cool.
That's wonderful. Now, the thing I hear from everybody, Dave, is because of COVID and payments or whatever the reason is, that everybody's having a hard time getting people to work. Are you seeing that? Not to work, getting people to want to work for you. Are you seeing the same thing?
I think when they should have cut out this government money, the $300 from the feds, I think it's really hurting the economy to the point where I don't know how to explain it, but people need to get back to work and to make the economy roll and to have some of the businesses stay open, because a lot of places, I talked to some people, it's a mom and pop place like us, and they can't get anybody and they're burned out. They're going to either have to close and they can't hire anybody, they can't buy anybody. It's ridiculous to keep that part of this going for so long. It's hurting us.
Well, and a business like yours, I mean, it's not like you're in a manufacturing thing where you've got people who you hire behind the scenes that your customers never see. Your customers interact directly with the people you hire. So it's very important the type of person that you hire has got to have the right personality.
Exactly. We were so lucky to get Paul, our new chef. The guy is truly a company man, and I feel blessed to have him on board. If we could just get a couple more, we could get a couple waitresses, then, we've got a sign on the door. We have very limited staff, and please bear with us, but every other restaurant is in the same shape. So I don't know. I haven't talked to too many people yet about what's the general idea when you go to another restaurant. Just to please be patient and don't be rude to the ones that are there, because we're doing the best we can, and as well as everybody else is,
Yeah, I've actually seen signs that they say, hey, we're short-staffed. Please be nice to the people who decided to show up for work.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it, because, back in the day, when everybody had full staff and you did get a little bit of shoddy service or something, it's understandable to be kind of ticked off. But right now, everybody, whether it's a drugstore or grocery store, everybody's in the same boat, so people have to learn how to be nice again. That's it. Be nice again.
Be nice again. And Dave, listen, we're going to obviously give you some time to get your legs back under you and get the staff filled out. But when it's appropriate, when it's time, you let me know, and we'll schedule a Wednesday Night Live there at Oscar and Joey's.
Okay. Yep. But right now, we just need to get a couple more people.
I understand.
I mean, the waitresses, they've always made phenomenal money. So.
Well, listen, I know you've got something you've got to head off to, so you go ahead, my friend, and you and I will talk again next week.
Thank you. Thanks for bearing with me, Michael, on this.
Always a pleasure.
Everything should be back to normal shortly.
Good. I'm wishing for that and hoping for that. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, who's had an interesting year, as many people, right? I mean, I look around at my industry, the outdoor industry, and fortunately, the outdoor industry in some ways has flourished during this formerly known as this pandemic that we had, because people had time and they wanted to go outside and they could socially distance and all that stuff. Supplies were down, certainly. Demand was up, supply was down, so that created some problems. But I've always felt, sorry for the people in the service industries and stuff where they just came in and shut them down. What are you going to do? It's like the outfitters and such up in Canada. I mean, they got shut down. Now it looks like maybe things are going to open up a little bit, and I am cautiously optimistic, even hopeful, that I could be going north to a bear hunt in White River sometime late in August, maybe early September. Keep you informed on that. Hey, listen, I would ask you to check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. If you're on social media, please follow me. Please like my different platforms there. And if you want to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do that. The email is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Feel free to send me an email, questions, comments, criticisms, what you'd like in the show, what you're sick of in the show. The email address, mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.